Welcome to our series on self-care for pastors. This is for anyone who is in pastoral ministry or is preparing for pastoral ministry. And one of the big things that we want to address to help you succeed in the long run is this question of self-care. Now, defining that, self-care is just the development of your whole person. It's pursuing health in all the basic categories of your life: emotional, physical, relational health, mental, intellectual health. And we want to make sure that you understand that. So we want to answer some questions that are just fundamental to this whole question of self-care. And so, guys, let's talk about this. You know, you could probably argue, and some have argued, that this idea of self-care is selfish. You know, is it all focused on me? How would you respond to that idea?
I would say that first of all, you always have to think in terms of what is the purpose behind why I'm doing this. If the purpose is ultimately to take it easier on yourself so that you can be more comfortable or have more conveniences, well, that could be selfish. But if ultimately you understand that self-care is about being able to live for God more effectively, being able to serve Him more effectively, more long-term so that you don't burn out, that's the opposite of selfish. That's living with a kingdom mindset.
Okay. The Bible says that we're supposed to deny ourselves. So, Jim, what?
Right.
How does
Which
this fit?
is usually misinterpreted, which means I need to abuse myself. Like
Okay.
if I do anything to care for myself, that's not self-denial. That's kind of self-interested, you know. and
Right.
that's just not true. I was going to say another thing. One of my favorite novels, the Jason Bourne novels. First time I read the first Jason Bourne novel, you know, he's running from his guy, all these people that are after him. He doesn't know why, and he finally gets this one spot where he can sleep. And he said, "I can't sleep because these people are after me." And then he says, "Well, somewhere in my training, I remember him saying, sleep is a weapon." And I thought, you know, and Dorothy and I use that all the time when it comes to self-care, because, you know, if you deny yourself just fundamental rest, you can't do what God's calling you to do.
Right. And so in a way, we could frame it as a stewardship issue. God has given us this finite resources, physically, emotionally, mentally, and so forth. And if we don't take care of that, then we're not going to really be able to fulfill the callings God given us in our life.
Exactly.
Right? So
Also, I would say, too, that part of denying yourself is denying maybe some of those old habits from your old life that maybe aren't healthy.
Oh, great
Lack
point.
of exercise, you eating unhealthy, no healthy boundaries in your life. Those might be things that you deny yourself that are actually toward the end of self-care.
okay, that's a great point. So denying yourself can be really seen in a way that supports the idea, I need to take care of myself. So I stop eating badly and stop sleeping badly and so forth. That's a great point.
Right.
So why is it, do you think, that pastors then so easily neglect this area of self-care?
Well, yeah, it's really simple, because we feel like our one and only job, our entire living and breathing existence is taking care of people. So those expectations get placed on you, and you feel like, well, I just got to do it until I'm dead.
Right.
And you can't do that. You have to pace yourself with self-care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, too, and myself included, you just lack a self-awareness when it comes to, you're not even, you can be so focused on other people that you don't even really think about yourself, and you don't think about your own needs, and you might be in decline and not even be aware of it.
Yeah, you're draining and you don't even know it. I mean,
Yeah.
I see this on Sundays, because Sundays for us are long, and I love what Sundays are. I mean, I get exhilarated by it, but then I come home and I drop dead for a nap, and suddenly my body's telling me, you know, you just put a ton out. And so you better recoup some. So it's more draining than you think in the moment.
But a lot of times it is, we're not aware of how much fatigue and energy it takes to minister to people. Yeah. So
I also think there sometimes is kind of almost a spiritualization, or even kind of a sense of spiritual pride with how hard I'm working, you know, and that it would be sort of unspiritual to take a break. And so we kind of spiritualize this thing, which really is unhealthy. I remember I had a seminary in professor that had this phrase that he said that it's better to rust out. No, it's better to burn out than to rust out.
Yeah.
And I remember that kind of was this subtle idea that it's okay to burn out, but at the end of the day, you're both not in ministry whether you burn out or rust out. So neither is healthy. So you don't want to put a spiritual spin on it.
And why does it have to be either or?
Yeah.
Why does it have to be either or?
Exactly.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, and I
Exactly.
think the real issue on self-care is pacing. What can you sustain by balancing, you know, the care and the output?
Yeah.
Big deal.
Yeah. It's and we're talking, because in this series, really one of our goals is longevity in ministry, and so this is really becomes important. Yeah. So I want to identify with you guys. Let's talk a little bit about what I'm calling identity issues. There's 4 key issues. They really have a lot of implications for all of life and all of ministry, but let's talk about these 4 things with respect to self-care. The first one is our personality. We have different personalities. How does that relate to how we take care of ourselves.
Yeah. Again, I think this is a great awareness issue. Being having an understanding of who you really are and how your personality works is so fundamental. I know we as a church staff here, we have been over the last year or so been taking the Myers-Briggs sort of profiles for all of our staff member, and that has been super helpful because all of a sudden it all kind of makes sense. And people have talked about this thing is so creepy because it sees me so exactly like I am. In particular, the issue of like introverted and extroverted, and just recognizing that how you need to rest from that. And if you're more introverted, that's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's a neutral personality thing, but it does have some implications in terms of how you take care of yourself.
Right. So as an introvert, I know I need to have some time alone.
Yeah.
I need to get away, and so I schedule that. And I also need to feel like it's okay for me not to always be engaging people every moment of the day. So that's how it affects me.
Yeah.
So personality, and then another one is family of origin. So families you grew up with, how would that affect self-care?
Well, you carry with you where you grew up, and so there's a lot of the self-care issues that may actually be looked over that you carry with you that are self-destructive. Right. Because you just absorb them from your family. And I find that usually what you need to do is ask other people, as you look at me, I feel like I'm burning out. Can you tell why? So while you're doing this, oh God, that's interesting. My dad used to do that.
Right.
So the family origin really does, you are infected whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
But you'll be blind unless you ask other people.
Yeah.
So
you need to have that perspective.
But you do have it. Everyone's got it.
Oh, definitely. I can totally identify the role of food. And how that, so food is a reward. Exactly. And it was a reward in my family growing up, so I'll think to myself, oh, I had a great day, I'm going to eat out tonight, or this afternoon, so.
Reward myself.
So that affects my self-care physically. Some different ways, So another one of those 4 fundamental issues is the distinction between your role and who you are as a person. Big deal. What do you think about that, Steve? And how does that maybe affect the self-care issue?
Yeah, that's huge. Especially, I think, maybe this is true for all career paths and so forth, but for those of us who are in ministry, there is this unique spiritual call in our lives that it really is kind of it's intertwined in our identity, but you also do have to have that healthy separation between your job and really your identity in Christ, and that your value as an individual and your value before God and His love and acceptance for you does not rise and fall with your church attendance or the budget or how the program went. And that's, I think, super helpful to understand, because we can really get down on ourselves when you're in a down season in the church, or have a false sense of I'm doing great, and you might be killing yourself and burning yourself out, but the church is growing, and so you feel like, well, that's okay.
I must be okay.
So you really have to see that.
Rust out. Hey, I'm a good
guy. Feather in my cap. And I think of the different dimensions of self-care. So, for example, with mental or intellectual care. So the question is like, do I read anything that's not work related?
Right.
Or, because I have to prepare a sermon, or do I have a spiritual life that's outside of my job? If I suddenly were to lose my job, would I still have a spiritual life?
Right.
So so things like that enter into self-care.
And they're usually diverse too, and they're suited to you. That's what we're talking identity, Because for instance, a couple years ago I took a night course on welding. And I loved it, but I don't think you'd like. Would you like a night course on welding?
I actually like welding.
Okay, there we go. So, but I mean, it has to be suited to you, suited to who you are.
And so, as long as you didn't take that course because there were church chairs that needed to be fixed, right? Somebody's got to fix these chairs.
I haven't used it for one thing yet. That's great. But I mean, but different things. You can't compare. Different things will kind of deal. Like for instance, I have a really deep streak of creativity. I gotta create somehow. I use a lot of creativity in teaching on Sundays, but when I'm not doing that, I still have to create outside and engage the other part. I did a watercolor class years ago, love that. I didn't know I liked that. So you just got to figure out how you're made. And if you like to golf, that doesn't mean I have to unwind,
Right.
So
exactly. And then there's a fourth identity issue, and that is the issue of comparing ourselves to others, comparison. So any comment on that?
Yeah, I think that just comes back to this whole idea biblically. In 1 Corinthians it talks about how we're all different, we all play different roles, and one is in no way more important than the other. And it's the whole thing we've all probably preached that many times. The hand more important than the foot, but man, we really have to take that to heart and recognize there's going to be people with different capacities in ministry and different types of ministry and sizes of ministry, and that in no way reflects on my value before God or my quality as a person or as a pastor. And if you get caught up in constantly comparing yourself to the next guy or the next church, man, that just totally puts you in this unhealthy death spiral.
Yeah,
Right.
especially in
Yeah.
the balance between how much do I spend on church and how do I self-care, you know?
Yeah.
Do I take time off? Do I do a sabbatical? Do I really do like a 1 day off a week? And I said, well, he doesn't, and he needs to do that first.
Right.
Yeah, you know,
Because he's
maybe-
burning out.
'Cause he's burning out.
And you don't know it yet, right? So that's the danger of comparison.
Yeah.
So that's great, guys. So thank you so much, because as you're watching this is so important that you learn these good habits and boundaries of taking care of yourself. It's so crucial to you having a successful ministry and thriving in ministry over the long haul. Thanks for watching today.